I still remember the shiver that ran down my spine when I opened my phone and saw the photo. It was him, smiling with his girlfriend beside him, leaning against a new car. Red, shiny, with that ridiculous bow on the hood. The caption, "A gift for my princess," froze. Because for 3 months he'd been telling me every week that he didn't have enough money for child support for our daughter. For 3 months I heard he was unemployed, that things were tough, that I needed patience. 3 months in which I dismantled my life to fill the void he left. Cut my hair at home. I stopped buying clothes. I went to the supermarket with a calculator, taking out a yogurt, putting in another, because every penny mattered. And at that very moment he gave me a car. A car that cost more than all the back child support I owed my son. I cried with rage. It wasn't a sad cry, you know? It was the cry of someone who had been mocked, and she knew it. I believed him. Waited. I told my daughter that her dad would help her soon, that it was just a phase. And meanwhile he was buying himself a car. I felt humiliated. Not only by him, but by myself, for having believed that this man would one day put his daughter first. My daughter was 4 years old. She didn't understand why she couldn't dance ballet like her friends, why her birthday party was at home with a cake I made myself and decorations like the ones you'd find at the supermarket. She didn't understand why we ate rice and eggs 3 times a week. But he did understand. He knew exactly what he was doing. And yet, he decided to give his girlfriend a car while his daughter slept on an old mattress that her cousin and the neighbor had already shared. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, breathing heavily, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to call him and scream. Another part wanted to simply disappear, vanish, because it seemed like nothing I did would change the fact that he didn't care. But then I heard my daughter stir in the next room, and something inside me shifted. I realized that if I did nothing, if I let it go, I would be teaching her that it's okay to be disrespected. That it's okay for a man to lie to her face and get away with it. And it was there, with my phone in my hand and that photo burning in my head, that I made the most important decision of my life. If you've ever been through this, if you've ever felt insignificant while your child's father pretended to have nothing and spent it all on everyone but him, please like this video. Because we need these stories to be seen. We need the algorithm to understand that single mothers matter, that our pain matters, and that we will no longer be silent. The next morning, I woke up with puffy eyes and a heavy head. My daughter came skipping into the room in her own way, asking for coffee with milk. I made it, put it on the small plastic table that served as our breakfast table, and sat down to watch her eat. She knew nothing. She didn't know that her father had money, that he simply didn't want to give it to her. She thought that's just how life was, tight, and that broke me in a way I can't explain. Picked up my phone again. I resumed the conversation with him. The last message was mine from 5 days ago. I need child support this week, we're out of diapers, and the rent is due Friday. He'd seen it. He didn't even reply. But he posted a picture of his new car. I started typing an angry message, cursing, saying everything I thought about him. But I stopped. I deleted everything. Because I realized something. He didn't deserve my anger. He deserved the consequences. I called a friend who worked at a law firm. I explained everything to her, my voice trembling. She told me I had the right to request a review of the child support payments, to collect the back payments, and that the photo of the car was proof that I did have the means. She gave me the contact information for a lawyer who offered affordable fees and said something that stuck with me. You're not doing this out of revenge. You're doing it for your daughter. And that's love. I spent the whole day thinking about it. Love. Because for me, love has always been about caring, being present, sacrificing. But for him, love was an empty word. It was an Instagram post on Father's Day. It was calling her once a month to talk to her for 5 minutes. It was making promises and not keeping them. And I was tired of being the only one who truly loved. Tired of compensating for his absence with twice as much of my presence, with my exhausted body, with my bank account overdrawn. That night, after putting my daughter to bed, I sat on the bed and cried again. But this time it was different. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was a mixture of sadness, of pain for something I always wanted her to be but never was, and a cold clarity that was beginning to take hold of me. I understood that I wasn't going to change, that I would never wake up one day and decide to be a real father, and that if I kept waiting, I would spend the rest of my life frustrated, and my daughter would grow up thinking it was normal to be invisible to her own father. I needed to act. Not for him. For me. For her. Because we deserved more than crumbs and excuses. Comment below if you've ever had to choose between waiting for your father to do the right thing or taking matters into your own hands. Sometimes it's necessary to stop waiting for justice and start seeking it with our own hands. I scheduled the appointment with the lawyer for the following Monday. I brought my daughter along because I had no one to leave her with. She sat on the office floor, doodling in an old notebook as I showed him the evidence. Screenshots of conversations where I said I had no money, a photo of the car, and proof of back child support payments. The lawyer looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It wasn't pity. It was outrage. He said cases like this were more common than I'd imagined and that the law was on my side. He explained that I could request enforcement of the child support payments, which could land him in prison if he continued to withhold them. My heart raced. Jail seemed too harsh. But he continued, "You don't have to feel sorry for him. He didn't feel sorry for you or his daughter when he bought that car." And that hit me like a ton of bricks. It was true. I felt guilty for standing up for my daughter, while he felt nothing for abandoning us. I signed the papers right there. I authorized the action. I left the office with trembling legs, but with something new in my chest. Hope mixed with fear. Hope that things would finally change. Fear that he would get angry, that he would turn against me, that he would tell everyone I was selfish, vindictive, that I only wanted to ruin his life. 'Cause I already knew the script. A mother who demands child support becomes the villain. A father who abandons his children, the victim. 2 days later she called me. I answered with a trembling hand. She was yelling. She said I was crazy, that I would regret it, that she wouldn't let me do this to her. That her daughter would grow up and hate me for taking her father to court. I listened silently, tears welling in my eyes, but without saying a word. When she finished, I simply said, "You could have avoided this. You just had to pay your daughter what you owe her." And I hung up. I was shaking for hours. My daughter asked me if I was okay. I told her yes, that mommy was just tired. But inside I was falling apart. Because no matter how wrong I was, no matter how badly I had done something, hearing her voice cursing me, threatening me, awakened a part of me that was still afraid. Afraid of retaliation. Afraid of being even more alone than I already was. Afraid that no one would believe me. But I didn't give up. Because for the first time in my life, I was choosing my daughter over my own comfort. And that, as terrifying as it was the right thing to do. If you're following this story and feel like every word resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. Because I still have so much to tell you, so many battles ahead, and I don't want you to miss a single part. We need to be together on this journey. The following weeks were the hardest of my life. While the legal process unfolded, I continued to live paycheck to paycheck. The child support payments weren't coming in, and the lawyer had warned me that these things take time. I knew it, but knowing it didn't allow me to pay the bills. Knowing it didn't fill the refrigerator. Knowing it didn't take away that lump in my throat every time I checked my bank balance and saw that I barely had enough to make it to the end of the month. I started doing odd cleaning jobs on weekends. I took my daughter with me because I had no other choice. She would sit quietly in a corner while I scrubbed floors, cleaned bathrooms, and wiped down the doors of people who didn't even look at me. I would come home with a sore back, bruised knees, and a broken heart, filled with guilt. Guilt for dragging my daughter along. Guilt for not being able to give her a normal childhood, with afternoons in the park, with her mother resting, with time to play. One night, I almost fainted. I had cleaned 3 houses that day because I needed the money to pay the electricity bill. I got home, opened the refrigerator, and there was hardly anything left. I made instant noodles to share. My daughter ate without complaining, but I saw in her eyes that she wanted more. And I didn't have any more. That night, after putting her to bed, I sat on the kitchen floor and cried until I had no more tears left. Felt like a failure. 'Cause no matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I tried, it never seemed enough. I was failing. I was too tired to be the mother I wanted to be. Too tired to be patient, to play, to smile. I just wanted to sleep and not wake up for 3 days straight. But I couldn't. Because if I fell, who would catch my daughter? No one. Only me. And this awareness was both what kept me going and what crushed me inside. One day I yelled at her. It was over something silly. She'd spilled juice on the floor. I exploded. I yelled loudly, louder than I should have. She got scared, started to cry, and there I was, becoming what I swore I'd never be. An exhausted mother taking it out on her child. I hugged her, apologized through my tears, told her mommy was so tired, that it wasn't her fault. But the damage was done. I saw the fear in her eyes. And that destroyed me more than any overdue bill, more than any humiliation. I was at my breaking point. My body at its breaking point. My mind at its breaking point. My heart at its breaking point. And the worst part was no one saw it. To everyone, I was just another struggling single mother. But inside I was falling apart. And I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. Comment here if you've ever felt this way. If you've ever yelled at your child and then cried with regret. If you've ever felt like the ground had been pulled out from under your feet, but you had to keep standing because there was no one to hold you up. We need to talk about this. About the exhaustion that no one sees. Several weeks passed. I continued with that survival routine. Waking before dawn and going to sleep after midnight. Always in a rush, always on the edge. My body no longer responded as it should. I had constant headaches, constant stomach upset. And there were nights when I simply couldn't sleep, despite being exhausted. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong, everything I still had to figure out. It was one of those heavy mornings when something happened that changed everything. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, trying to gather the strength to get up and start another day. My daughter woke up, came to me, and without saying a word, hugged me. It wasn't just any hug. It was one of those tight hugs, the kind a child gives when they sense their mother isn't feeling well. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Mommy, I love you so much." Broke down. I cried right there with her in my arms, and for the first time in weeks, it wasn't a cry of despair. It was a cry of relief. Because in that instant I understood something. She was okay. Despite everything, despite the stress, the rush, my mistakes, she was okay. She loved me. She didn't see me as a failure. She saw me as a mother. And that was like a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I was almost drowning. I cupped her face, looked into her eyes and said, "Mommy loves you too. So much. And we're going to be okay, alright? I promise." And in that moment, I believed in my own promise. Because I realized I'd been so focused on everything I lacked that I'd forgotten what I'd already achieved. My daughter had food every day, even if it was simple. She had a roof over her head, clean clothes, and a mother who wouldn't give up. And that was no small thing. That was everything. That day, something inside me shifted. I was still tired, still broken, but I wasn't alone in that dark hole anymore. I had her. And she had me. And as long as we had each other, we would make it. It wasn't going to be easy, it wasn't going to be pretty, but we would make it. I got up, made coffee, got her ready for daycare, and for the first time in a long time I smiled. A small, tired smile, but a real one. Because I understood that love doesn't need money to exist. Love exists in a tight hug early in the morning. Love exists in the promise we make and keep, even when it seems impossible. And I had so much love to give. More than any new car, more than any expensive gift. I had my presence. And that, in the end, was what mattered. If your child has ever helped you get back on your feet when all seemed lost, if it was their smile that gave you the strength to keep going like this post. Because these stories need to be told. The strength of a single mother comes from places no one imagines. 2 months after the initial hearing, I received a call from the lawyer. My heart skipped a beat. He said the ruling had been issued. The judge had ordered him to pay all the back child support within 30 days, and that starting that month, the amount would be deposited directly into my account, with a deduction from my paycheck. If he didn't pay the arrears, he could be arrested. I hung up and stood there in the middle of the courtroom, incredulous. It had worked. Justice had prevailed. I cried again, but this time they were tears of relief. It was like a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I wouldn't have to beg anymore. I wouldn't have to send messages every month asking for what belonged to my daughter. I wouldn't hear any more excuses. He would have to pay whether he liked it or not. And that gave me a sense of power I'd never felt before. I had fought. And I had won. When the money arrived in the account, I sat down with my daughter on the sofa and showed her my phone statement. She didn't quite understand what it meant, but I explained it to her in her own words. "Sweetie, now Mommy can buy what we need without so much worry. We'll be okay." She smiled and hugged me, and I felt that finally after so long we could breathe again. I went to the market and filled the cart. I bought fruit, yogurt, the things I always crossed off the list because they were too expensive. I bought him a small toy just because I could. When we got home and put everything in the refrigerator, I looked at the full fridge and broke down again. Because for many people, a full refrigerator is normal. But for me, in that moment, it was a victory. It was proof that I hadn't given up, that I had made it to the end, that I had my dignity. That night, I made a real dinner. Rice, beans, meat, salad. I set the table, called my daughter, and we ate together without rushing, without worries. She ate happily, and I watched her, thinking about everything we had been through to get here. And I felt proud. Proud of myself for not giving up. Proud of her for being strong with me without even knowing it. Proud of us. But deep down, I knew it was only the beginning. Because alimony was a right, not a favor. And I still had a long way to go to rebuild my life, to stop just surviving and start truly living. But for the first time in a long time, I believed it was possible. If you're going through a similar struggle and haven't seen results yet, don't give up. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it hurts, but when victory comes, every tear is worth it. Share your first win as a single mom here, no matter how small. We need to celebrate these achievements together. With my pension arriving every month, everything started to get easier. It wasn't easy, but it became possible. I could pay the bills on time, I could plan the month without that constant weight on my chest. My daughter was doing well, eating well. She even went back to the dance class I had taken her away from. Seeing her happy in her ballet shoes meant everything to me. But one day I stood in front of the mirror and I didn't recognize the woman there. Gained weight. My hair was dry with huge roots showing. I lived in old sweatpants and baggy t-shirts. Always the same 3 items. I couldn't remember the last time I'd worn lipstick or gone anywhere other than the supermarket or work. I'd become just a mother. Just bills. Just responsibility. The woman I used to be was gone, and I hadn't even realized when it happened. That night I sat on the bed and a profound loneliness washed over me. It wasn't the loneliness of having no one around. It was the loneliness of having forgotten myself. Of no longer seeing myself as a woman, only as a function. I couldn't remember the last time someone had affectionately called me by my name. The last time I had felt desired, beautiful, interesting. I had become invisible. And worse still, I had become invisible even to myself. I thought about my ex. He was there with his girlfriend, going out, traveling, living like he didn't have a daughter in the world. And me. I was stuck. Stuck in the routine, stuck in the responsibility, stuck in the guilt of wanting more than just being a mother. Because we can't talk about it, can we? Single mothers who say they miss being women become selfish. They become ungrateful. As if we couldn't feel the emptiness, the loneliness, the longing, the exhaustion of carrying it all alone. There were nights I cried about it. Not because I wanted him back, not at all. But because I missed being looked at. Talking to someone about something other than my son or the bills. Laughing, getting dressed up for something. Feeling alive beyond motherhood. And along with that came the guilt. Guilt for wanting more. Guilt for not being satisfied with just my daughter's love. Guilt for thinking about myself. But little by little, I understood something. I wasn't just a mother. I was also a woman. And taking care of myself, respecting myself, didn't make me any less of a mother. Made me more human. And if I never saw myself again, I would disappear completely. And my daughter didn't deserve a mother who vanished either. Comment here if you've ever felt this way. If you've ever looked in the mirror and no longer recognized yourself. If you've ever felt guilty for wanting to be more than just a mother. 'Cause we need to talk about this. About the woman who gets lost under so much weight. It was a Saturday afternoon when I made a decision. I was organizing my drawers, throwing away old papers, when I found a photo of myself from years ago. I was smiling, wearing a dress and makeup at a friend's birthday party. I looked at the photo and felt a tightness in my chest. That woman seemed so distant, as if she were someone else. But it was me. And I missed her. I sat on the bed with my phone in my hand and started doing calculations. Real calculations. I wrote everything down. How much was coming in, how much was going out, where I could cut back, where I could improve. I realized I was spending money on things I didn't even need, just out of habit, out of disorganization. I canceled subscriptions I didn't even use. I switched my phone plan to a cheaper one. I started planning my monthly shopping with a list. No more improvising. And in the end, there was a little bit left over. Not much, but some. I decided the money would be for me. Not for expensive clothes or luxuries, but to see myself again. I made an appointment at the cheapest hair salon I could find and got a haircut. Nothing extravagant, a simple cut, but it made me feel presentable. When I left and saw my reflection in the shop window next door, I smiled. It seemed silly, but it wasn't. It was me recognizing myself. I also started studying. I saw in an online group for single mothers that some women were taking free online courses to improve their resumes and get better jobs. I signed up for an Excel course and a customer service course. I studied in the early hours of the morning after my daughter had gone to bed, with my phone in my hand and my notebook beside me. It was exhausting, but it was different. I was building something. Not just surviving, but building something. I updated my resume. I sent it to some places that were better than the odd jobs I was doing. And 3 weeks later I got a call. It was from a telemarketing company. They still paid little, but it was a formal contract with fixed hours. It was dignity. I accepted immediately. The day I signed the contract, I left there with my heart full of pride. Because I was no longer a day laborer, a cleaner, a day worker. I was an employee again. And that mattered. I realized I'd spent so much time in survival mode that I'd forgotten I could plan. That I could grow. That I could build a better life, not just for my daughter, but for myself. And for the first time in a long time, I looked to the future and saw possibilities, not just fear. If you too are trying to move beyond mere survival and start planning, subscribe to this channel. Because we need to see that it's possible. That it's possible to rebuild, even when it seems there's no ground left to stand on. Everything was starting to fall into place. I had a new job, my daughter was doing well in preschool. And for the first time in years, I could sleep without waking up in the middle of the night with my heart racing. It was right then that he reappeared. Not with back child support, not with excuses. He reappeared wanting to be a father. I received a message from him one Sunday morning. He said he'd thought about it a lot, that he'd made a mistake, and that he wanted to start spending time with his daughter. That he had the right. That he'd changed. I read it 3 times, feeling my blood boil. Really? He wanted to talk about rights. After everything. After disappearing, lying, letting us starve while he bought his girlfriend a car? Now he wanted rights. I answered coldly. I told him that if he wanted to see his daughter, it would have to be done properly, at a set time and responsibly. He agreed. We scheduled it for the following Saturday. I spent the whole week tense, not knowing how to explain it to my daughter. She was 5 years old and already asked about her father sometimes, but with a certain detachment, like someone asking about a person they've only seen once in their life. I didn't want to raise her expectations. I didn't want her to get hurt. Saturday arrived just in time. He knocked on the door, and when she opened it, he was different. More elegant, smiling, with a gift in his hand. My daughter was shy at first, but he was affectionate. He played with her, and I saw a joy in her eyes that broke my heart. Because she wanted to believe. She wanted to have a father. And she knew that if he disappeared again, he would cause her irreparable harm. They spent the afternoon together. When he brought her back, she was happy, talking non-stop. She looked at me and said, "Thank you for letting me see her. I want to be really present now." I nodded, closed the door, and took a deep breath. Because as much as I wanted to believe, as much as I wished my daughter had a present father, I knew this man. And I knew that the promises he made to her were just empty words. In the following weeks, he kept his word. He picked her up every Saturday, took her to the park, and brought her back on time. And that confused me. Part of me was happy for my daughter. But another part, the part he had destroyed, couldn't trust, couldn't forget. And I found myself torn between protecting my daughter from further disappointment and giving her the chance to have the father she so desperately wanted. Comment below if you've ever been through this. If the absent father returned wanting space after you'd already rebuilt everything on your own. Because this is one of the hardest moments. Deciding between protecting or giving a chance. A month passed. He continued picking up my daughter on Saturdays, and she grew more and more attached to him. She started talking about him during the week, asking if Daddy was coming on Saturdays, drawing him in her school pictures. And it affected me in a way I can't explain. Because, even though I wanted her to have that relationship, I felt a burning anger inside. Anger because he was reaping what I had sown alone. Anger because he was the hero, visiting once a week, while I was the one there every day, exhausted, running around, crying in the middle of the night. One Saturday he didn't show up. He sent me a message half an hour after the agreed-upon time saying something unexpected had come up and he was going to reschedule. My daughter was ready, her little backpack on, waiting at the door. When I told her he wasn't coming, she cried. She cried that heartbreaking way a child cries when they don't understand why their father makes promises he doesn't keep. And at that moment, all the anger I'd been holding in exploded. Called him. I didn't yell, but I spoke to him with a firmness I didn't even know I possessed. I told him that if he was going to be a part of her life, it had to be for real. That a child isn't a toy you pick up when you want it and put down when you get tired of it. That she had already suffered enough from his absence, and that I wasn't going to let him hurt her again just because he thought it was great to be a weekend dad. He was silent on the other end. Then he said I was exaggerating, that it was just an unexpected situation, that he'd always find an excuse to make a fuss. And then I knew for sure. He hadn't changed. He was simply going through a good phase, a phase where being a father suited him. But at the first sign of trouble, the first time something became more important, he disappeared again. And I couldn't let my daughter live on that emotional roller coaster, waiting for someone who would never be there for her. I made the hardest decision of my life. I told her that if she wanted to continue seeing her, it would have to be with real responsibility. With a set frequency, with commitment, with respect for her time. That I would accept her presence, but that if she failed again I would protect my daughter, even if it meant cutting her off. She didn't like it. She said I was being controlling, that I couldn't decide this alone. But I said yes I could, because I was the present mother. And protecting my daughter wasn't about control, it was about love. I hung up the phone with a heavy heart, because I knew this decision could backfire. That he could use it to paint me as the villain, to say I was pushing his daughter away. But I also knew that if I didn't set boundaries, my daughter would grow up thinking that love is inconsistent, that promises aren't kept, that it's okay to be abandoned again and again. And I'd rather be called the villain than let that happen. If you've ever had to choose between letting a father into your child's life or setting firm boundaries, you know how painful it is. Like this post, if you understand that protecting isn't about pushing away, but about preserving. Because not everyone understands that. More time passed. He continued seeing my daughter, but from a distance, without the consistency I asked for. Sometimes he would pick her up, sometimes he would cancel. I learned not to get my hopes up and began preparing my daughter as well. But one day she asked me the question I feared most. We were having dinner alone when she stopped eating, looked at me with those eyes that were too serious for her age and asked, "Mom, why doesn't Dad live with us?" My heart stopped. I knew this day would come, but I wasn't ready. I took a deep breath and chose each word carefully. I told her that not all parents stay together and that it had nothing to do with her. That her father loved her in his own way, but that he and her mother weren't compatible living together. She was quiet for a while, processing the situation, and then asked, "But does he love me?" That question devastated me, because I didn't know how to answer without lying, but I also didn't want to shatter the image she had of her father. I told her, "He loves you, sweetheart. It's just that sometimes people show their love in different ways. And Dad can't be as present as I'd like. But you have Mom, and Mom is here every day, and she always will be." She accepted it, at least for that moment. But I saw a sadness in her eyes that no child should have to bear. And I felt a deep hatred for him. Not because he had hurt me, but because he was hurting her. And she had done nothing to deserve it. She just wanted a father present, and that was the least any child deserved. That night, after putting her to bed, I wrote her a letter. Not to him, but to her. A letter she would only read when she was older. I wrote everything down. About my struggles, about the decisions I had to make, about how much I loved her, and about how I tried to preserve her father's image even when he didn't deserve it. I wrote to her because I wanted her to know that one day, when she understood everything, I always put her first. Always. I put the letter in an envelope, dated it, and hid it in a drawer. And I promised myself I would continue protecting her, explaining things properly, without malice, but with the truth. Because she deserved to know that she was never the problem. He was always the problem. If you've ever had to explain to your child why their father isn't around without breaking their heart, you know how difficult it is. Share your experience in the comments below, because we need to support each other during these times. Today, as my daughter sleeps in the next room, I sit here and write these last words. Not for him. Not for the world. But for myself. For the woman I was when everything fell apart, for the woman who thought she wouldn't make it, who stared into the abyss and still took one more step. I wanted to tell my younger self, "You will make it. It will hurt, it will be unfair, there will be nights when you want to give up. But you won't give up. Because inside you there is a strength you can't even imagine yet. A strength that doesn't come from nowhere, but from the love you feel for that child who depends on you. And that love will be greater than exhaustion, greater than anger, greater than fear." I learned that being a single mother isn't about being a warrior all the time. It's about being human. It's about making mistakes, apologizing, and getting back up. It's about secretly crying in the bathroom and then smiling in the living room 5 minutes later. It's about carrying a weight that no one sees, but that shapes you in ways that nothing else in the world could. And yes, there are days when I feel angry. Angry that I have to do it all alone while he lives carefree, without guilt, without responsibility. But I also learned that anger can't be what drives me. What drives me is her. It's her future. It's the woman she'll become when she sees that her mother didn't give up. My daughter will grow up knowing that true love isn't perfect, but it's constant. That mothers aren't superheroes. They're real women who give their best. That she was loved, even on the days when I was too exhausted to show it properly. And that her father's absence was never, ever her fault. If you're listening to me now and you're going through something similar, I want you to know you're not alone. There are thousands of mothers like us, struggling, crying, rebuilding. And we will win. Not because we're strong, but because we have no other choice but to keep going. And in the end, when you look back, you'll see that every step was worth it. That you built something beautiful despite so much pain. And that you are truly amazing. If this story touched you in any way, if you cried, if you identified with it at any point, please like, subscribe to the channel and share this video. Because the stories of single mothers need to be told, seen, and respected. And the more we talk about it, the more we show the world that we exist, that we matter, and that we will no longer be invisible. Thank you for joining me until the end. From the bottom of my heart.